What's up, MMA fans? I'm gonna do Strikeforce Lawler versus Shields post fight. Wow, what a mind fuck tonight was. Sorry to use that word. Really didn't, don't really like to curse, but wow, what a crazy night. Get right to it. First fight, obviously, Whitehead versus Randleman. I want to say, this is a classic fight where a guy like Randleman, who was a champion back in the day, I believe it was 97, 96, around that time, where MMA was in its, and it still very much is, in its, as a sport per se, in its infancy, but definitely in its very early infancy, then was once a champion, fighting against a guy like Whitehead, who was a journeyman fighter, a good fighter, and later on in the commentary I'm going to explain my reasoning behind this. It is a good fighter, but obviously not a great fighter, because there was instances in this fight where Randleman was screaming, was screaming to be stopped. Like he had, and Mike just, I don't know if he doesn't have the tools or the instinct or the, whatever it is to just go in there and finish it, but he had Randleman in certain points of that fight. It was just like he was gassed. He would get Randleman down. Randleman would obviously explode out of it, but just really didn't present much. And in the third round, when he landed that left hook, it was like almost like a crow cop all over again. He had Whitehead down, and for whatever reason, he chose to stop hitting him and tried to go for, it looked like it was an arm triangle or a darce, but he didn't have it, and that was pretty much his only chance to win the fight, and I think he should have realized that, and he didn't take it, and eventually it cost him the fight. That was the one round he did win, obviously, because of the big knockdown. It's unfortunate to see, a guy who's older, kind of in the twilight of his career, you want to say, out of respect for him, that he hopefully can continue, but, in being realistic, he really doesn't look like he has it anymore. Even when he did fight against more well-rounded fighters back in the day, he was, he was beaten, and I just don't think he has the tools, in my opinion, to, compete at the elite level against elite fighters, especially, like I said, Whitehead's a journeyman and is a good fighter, but not, a fighter that's going to, win any belts or, be at the top of any promotions, I think, anytime soon. But nevertheless, Mike Whitehead gets the decision victory. Now on to the next fight we got to see, which was Joe Riggs against Phil Baroni, and this was a classic fight where Phil just gets in a war of attrition, and we've seen this before, and just gets beaten and gets beaten up, and he takes a lot of punches, takes a lot of damage, goes the distance, and I think this is obviously going to affect him later on in his career, because this is, he's moved down in a weight class to help avoid that, but it just, he did some different things. He went for some takedowns. He was able to get up, and it was a surprising thing, because usually when Phil would get taken down, he kind of looked like a turtle on his back. He really didn't know what to do. He did some good things. Relies way too much on his punching power, sits down on his punches way too much, and guys are able to slip and move, and he's not the fastest puncher, but he's definitely a hard puncher. But a guy like Riggs, who's just as athletic and just as hard a puncher, was able to beat him to the punch, and in the third round it was just a clinic. He was putting it on Phil. And later on after the fight, Riggs revealed that he had flu, he was sick, he was very emotional about some other things, obviously, I think, and provided maybe he was 100% healthy, he could have finished Baroni. I don't know what Baroni has to do to get better or evolve. Who knows? I mean, it's kind of the same thing we've seen from, in the past, where he gets into a war with a guy, like I said, and he just kind of wilts. But he is a very tough guy. He took a lot of punishment. He kept at it. He didn't stop. So I got to give him credit. But nevertheless, it was a clean sweep for Riggs on the scorecards. Now on to the next fight. Nick Diaz versus Scott Smith. And Nick, oh man. And this is gonna involve 2 fights. And Nick, I think he really just lulls fighters to sleep with these punches that he throws, these peppering like jabs, because they don't look like they have a lot on him, but he doesn't throw one punch. The guy throws 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like pop, 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 pop. And he's got this long reach. It was really mixing in the kicks nicely. And I think he is evolving into a great fighter, because he's finishing. He's really going in for the kill. But we've seen against a guy like KJ Noons, who's a professional boxer. I'm going to talk about this in the next fight. Be able to nullify that pitter-patter, and with short punches, good combinations, and be able to sprawl, because obviously when Diaz was in trouble on the feet, not so much from being rocked, but from being hit and cut, he wanted to take Noons down. And you saw a guy like Smith just stand there with his head just still, and you could just tell he was waiting for the one punch. He was just waiting for it, and he was just in the process getting just obliterated with like 4, 5, 6, 7 shots. Then the body again with Smith, he gets hit to the body in mid-fight, and he just he hunkers over again. I don't know if he just can't take it to the body too well, or I don't know. It just seems like it's an Achilles heel for him. Saw it in Cell. He was lucky to win that fight. Saw it in the Lawler fights, both the Lawler fights actually. This fight now. So, I mean, Smith is a very entertaining fighter, but we've seen, we got to remember, definitely a professional boxer compared to an MMA so-called good striker is completely different. Now on to the next fight, with Andrei Arlovski versus Brett Rogers. And honestly, it didn't shock me. For a split second in the beginning it did, but it had all the makings of an upset. Arlovski he was feinting, didn't want to go. Brett did the same thing, and then he decided to go. And I'm tired of hearing all this stuff about Freddie Roach, and these guys, he's training with Freddie Roach. So what? Not taking away anything from Freddie Roach, but who has he turned other than Manny Pacquiao into a superstar in the ring? Trained Mike Tyson, didn't do good for him. Worked with Oscar De La Hoya against Mayweather, didn't help him out. He's worked with Arlovski for 2 fights, and guess what? Arlovski's been knocked out twice. And of course, it didn't take a Sherdogger like a second after that fight to post like, "Oh, Fedor's win over Arlovski doesn't look as good now." It was hilarious. I said, "Oh, it's gonna come instantly," and it did. I love it. They're really brilliant on there. Not any disrespect to those of you who are on Sherdog, but I just don't stay away from those forums. I don't read any of them. I had to hop on there just to see it, and I did, and I was like, okay, I'm done. But nevertheless, Rogers chose to pull the trigger first. He's a huge heavyweight, and he hit him with, I want to say, the one shot that rattled him. Andrei backed right up with his chin up and put himself against the cage, nowhere to go, and his chin was exposed, and he got caught with another 2 good punches. He was stiff. He would have taken a few good more shots on his knees, and John, you can't dispute John. It was a good stoppage. Don't want to see anybody getting too hurt in there. Mess the sport up for everybody. But Brett has definitely arrived, and he's going to be fighting Alistair Overeem, and that's going to be a good fight. Overeem, I think, is a bit better at heavyweight. He doesn't have to cut that weight. Looks, he's just as good a striker. So we'll see what happens. But you got to give big props to Brett Rogers, he's arrived. And on to the main event: Ruthless Robbie Lawler versus Jake Shields. The second they square up and clinch, you know, you could tell Shields is like, holy shit, this guy's strong. Because, and in the stand-up, but Robbie is just so patient anymore, and I'm like, Robbie, let go, Robbie, let go. I'm saying to myself, and he's just standing there, not letting go. And you could tell, like, Shields is a little perturbed by the fact that he could not get him to the ground. He was just not, he was, like, very, just not comfortable with it. And standing there, his chin was up. I'm like, okay, is he going to throw? Robbie, he's taking, you know, not hard kicks. He's taking kicks. He's waiting. And then he clinches with him one time, gets off the cage. Then he does it again with his head down with one underhook in, and Shields just jumps. I mean, Lawler put himself in that. He put himself in that guillotine. I was like, oh man. I was like, it's over. The second, because it wasn't deep into the fight. Yeah, he wasn't too sweaty. Neither fighter's too sweaty. And with a guy like Shields, you know, if you're dry, you're not getting out of that shit. A Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, you're not getting him off you. It was pretty much over. And then when he jumped into the you know, guard, and when Robbie went to try to slam him, before that I knew it was over, but especially when Robbie went to try to slam him, I thought he should have tried to at least bridge the arm over and help push his head out, but he didn't do that. It was an arm-in guillotine. It was a great move by Shields, a great victory. You got to give him credit for that. I'd like to see this fight redone, though, to be honest with you. I just think Robbie got a little careless and got himself caught, and that's the game of mixed martial arts, and that's why it's a great sport. Thanks for the comments. Again, guys, I appreciate it. We got another good night tomorrow night. It's a fun time to be an MMA fan. You know, summer's heating up. It's definitely good to watch. Definitely some good fights tonight. Congratulations to all the winners and losers. You know, you got to give respect to everybody who goes in that cage, ring, whatever, competes, puts it on the line to entertain us, to make their living. We appreciate it. And thank you guys. Appreciate you for watching.